So, in today's Cheeky Finance, just to start, I would like to talk about my last week Discord signals that I sent. I also want to give you a little bit of technical analysis to see what's happening with Bitcoin right now and what we can expect for next week. Finally, I've mentioned before that I want to talk more about finance in this channel. So in today's video, I will talk about behavioral finance and more specifically about cognitive biases. I will explain what they are, how can they affect your trading, and how you can actually avoid them. So if you're curious about it, just chill and keep watching. Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, and this is your host, the Cheeky Entrepreneur. So first of all, I would like to talk about the Discord signals that I sent over the last week. And to be honest, I only sent one signal, which was this huge trade that we saw. It was to the long side, so congratulations to everyone that followed. So right now I'm just gonna explain again why I took this trade. I did mention it during the last week, but again, this is for you to learn how I trade and how you can actually become a little bit better at trading itself. So let's just start. So during the last week, what I mentioned, it was mostly over this daily chart, and the first thing that I pointed out was that we had this yellow line over here that was possibly indicating a potential channel, because we have not gone down this line, so it provided enough resistance to actually go up. And I mentioned as well that we were gonna be having extreme resistance to the upside with this 50 moving average. And lastly, the last thing that I said was this red line, which was actually creating this descending wedge. So in addition to this, I also posted a video about oscillators, and I specifically mentioned how you can use the stochastics to validate different types of trades. And for instance, here the stochastics were actually oversold, which means that it was actually a good opportunity to long the price. And just for transparency, what I did mention in my Discord channel is that I took a trade specifically at 3,350 in here, and the reason was because it went below the line and I knew it was a strong resistance. Therefore I took my chances and I actually bought in there. And again, one of the reasons I did not update that much is because it actually took several days for the price action to actually go up. But we actually see that the price went a little back up. It felt some more resistance from this red line. It went back down, retested this yellow line which I mentioned, and finally broke to the upside. And here it's also important for you to see that we kind of have a small bullish divergence over here. I would not really call it that because it's not really pronounced, but nevertheless it's still a bullish divergence around here in the RSI. We see that the RSI is at the same level, but the price is slightly lower. So that was another confirmation to actually take a long. So just as I mentioned, after the price went up, I had my take profits around 3.7k, and that's where I took all my positions out. And I mentioned before that we were gonna find a lot of resistance with this 50 EMA, and the reason is because we have not been able to actually break it for a very long time. So I was expecting the price to actually retrace. So now that I've talked about the Discord signals, I want to see what could actually happen over this next week. And here we have two clear scenarios, one bullish and one bearish, of course. The first thing that we could actually see, I think other people have mentioned it already, we can see this kind of bar pattern where the price goes to the upside, it starts consolidating, and then in the end it actually goes back down. So that's one possibility. But another possibility is that we're actually trading a bull flag, and the reason is because if we take this pole to the upside, we can see that the price is actually going down in a certain manner, and we could actually compute the target if we put the line over here, and we could see that we could reach around a 4k, which is not crazy at all. So now one of the reasons I'm doubting that the price will actually go all the way to 4k, first of all, this trend line that's going around here, we know that this could potentially be another descending triangle, and we definitely need to pay attention to this. I'm not saying that this could again send us over way lower prices, but it could definitely show a lot of resistance around here. So that's one of the things that I mentioned from my last trade, is that the first line of resistance was gonna be this 50 EMA, and the second one was definitely gonna be this descending line plus the Ichimoku cloud. So you know, there's a lot of resistance to the upside. And also, if we take a look at the daily stochastics, we see that we're already on the overbought position, and therefore the momentum to the upside might be over. But we also see that the RSI is still nowhere near overbought. It's around the 50 level, so there is still some space to go up before the stochastics actually go down. So now, going at the 4-hour time frame, we see that the picture is kind of different. We see that the stochastics are still oversold. It seems that there is a space to the upside, but I would really like to focus on the rebound, and the reason is because we know that in the 4-hour chart it represents a lot of resistance, and for a lot of times we get these bounces to the downside when we actually meet the rebound. And this is actually true if we go back here a little bit in the past, that whenever we're actually interacting with a rebound, whenever we actually break up, we find a strong resistance. We can find some strong resistance here, we can find some strong resistance here, once again in here, and even all the way to the upside. So I'm actually expecting the possibility of something similar happening around here. Also, combined with the fact that we have not really made a bearish divergence, it tells me that the price could actually still move to the upside. And one of the things that happens a lot, and I'm saying this by experience, is that the price, whenever it tends to go up or to go down, it usually forms a divergence just before turning around. And we have, even though we have seen a small, very small divergence around here, I don't think this is the one that's gonna actually take us all the way down again. But again, I could always be wrong. This is the market, and we know that there is a lot of pumps and dumps. But just for transparency's sake, I'm gonna say that I actually took a small long around this level, and I'm gonna mention why I did that. So one of the reasons that I took that trade is because we have seen over the past that we have been going down very dramatically, and we have not really bought up enough times. This is probably the first time that we actually have a real relief, and I'm expecting to have more relief from this space here to the downside. So that's the first thing. The second thing, as I've told you before, I love to trade with channels. I love to see where the price might take us. So we can see that now that we have broken this downwards channel that I mentioned over Discord as well, we can start computing the possibility of having a channel going to the upside. So if we did that, we could actually take these lines, as I've told you before, just copy paste them and just try to find out where the price is gonna find some resistance. And we have something similar to this. And again, this is just pure speculation. So we have seen some resistance around here. So right now I am just waiting to see whether this line can hold and it can actually go up. If not, I'll just close the long. I've already profited from 3,350 all the way to 3.7k, so I wouldn't mind if it closes down in a small loss in this scenario. But just to move into the next segment, I'm just gonna say that I'm actually expecting the price not to go all the way to 4k, as it would be the actual take profit or the actual target of this bear flag, but I would take profits around or before 3.8k, and the reason is because of this line, because if we actually go up from here, we would find extra resistance, and at this point around here we would be extremely overbought. So I would be looking more to short at that point than to actually be buying. So as I mentioned from the introduction, I want to talk more about behavioral finance, and specifically about cognitive biases. So a bias is a tendency that affects our behavior and our perspective, and this is based on mental notions and beliefs that we already have. So there's a lot of cognitive biases out there, but I'm gonna mention 4 of the most important that I think mainly affect the cryptocurrency market. So the first cognitive bias that I would like to talk about is the recency bias. And this is when we overrate recent information and ignore everything else that is happening. We place too much emphasis on this information and we actually forget everything else that has happened before. And as you imagine, this is a huge problem because sometimes we see good fundamentals and we just trade based on that. And this is the reasons why sometimes we see all these pumps and dumps whenever we see some news. And the reason is because a lot of people are trading over this news, and if they just hear positive news, they start buying and you see the price actually going up. But what ends up happening is that the price actually retraces, and the reason is because rationality comes back to the market after a couple days after the fundamentals. So a second very important bias is called the confirmation bias. And this is where we basically look only for information that confirms our beliefs and ignore any other contradictions. And again, as you can see, this happens a lot in the cryptocurrency market. There's a lot of what they call these moon boys, or people that actually believe that the price is only gonna go up and they don't care about other fundamentals that might contradict that. And you might know already that I'm actually very bullish on the technology. I actually think it's the future of finance in a sense, but again, I cannot ignore that there's a lot of countries that are not yet ready to adopt the technology. There's a lot of regulation constraints, there's a lot of political constraints, and there's a lot of logistical constraints in regards to how we manage monetary policies and how we manage finance currently, and how we could start managing this in a digital form. So having mentioned this is very important, because one way that you can actually avoid this to cognitive biases is to do extensive research. It's to actually get out of your comfort zone and try to look information not only that's gonna benefit what you're thinking about the price or what you're thinking about your positions, but it's also gonna be contradicting them, because the more information you have, the better your decision is gonna be. So the third cognitive bias that I would like to talk about is the endowment effect. And this is when we value things that we already own more than the things that we do not own. And this is very related to this fear of regret. And for instance, this can really affect your trading strategy, because let's say you're trading on the cryptocurrency market based on this altcoin cycle. So let's say that your strategy says that when Bitcoin reaches this price, you're actually gonna diversify into different altcoins. And let's say this is your strategy, but because of this endowment effect, when you see that the price actually goes up for Bitcoin, just because you already own Bitcoin, you are not likely to sell it. And you say, maybe I should just keep Bitcoin because it has actually go higher, but the altcoins have not followed yet. And this feeling of ownership is gonna be affecting you, because you're not gonna be following your initial strategy. So the last cognitive bias that I want to talk about is called the disposition effect. And this is probably the one that affects most traders out there, because this is the tendency to sell winning positions too early and hold into losing positions for way too long. And I think we all have been victims of this cognitive bias, because it's really common for novices and it's also common for professional traders. Luckily for you, there's ways to actually try to avoid these last two cognitive biases. The first thing that you need to do is to actually stick to your investment strategy, to your original investment strategy. So for instance, if you take a trade and you analyze the market before, just forget about your trade and let it run, because chances are that you were actually very calm when doing the analysis for that trade. And if you don't allow enough time to actually move to the upside or to the downside, you're gonna be affected by the price action. And the second most important thing that you should always do is ask yourself the opposite questions. So let's say, for instance, here back in the trade that I made around here, we see that the price actually went up. So I start asking myself, should I buy, should I sell? So for instance, because I bought here, you would say, should I actually sell around here? But you should be asking yourself, if I had the same liquidity available right now, would I actually buy at these levels? So if you look at here, you have the stochastics almost reaching up, you have this pump, you have this 50 moving average, So would you actually buy at this point? Well, I personally wouldn't. Therefore, that answer actually says that I should close my position and take profit. And the same is true for the opposite. If the price is actually going down and you have a short and you say, should I close my positions and buy back the price? You should ask yourself, would I buy this asset at this price? And if the answer is yes, I would buy it, then you should definitely close your short. But if your answer is the opposite and you wouldn't buy the price at that point, then you should keep your short position. So anyways guys, I hope that you learned something and you liked the video, and if you did, and only if you did, mind subscribing and also push that like button. You know that I'm also active in other social media. I got an Instagram account where I post all the highlights of my video, as well as some more posts on entrepreneurship and news of the financial market. By now you should already know that I have a Discord server where I put all my trading setups and I give free signals every single week. So you should definitely check that out. Links will be down in the description. But anyways guys, just as usual, I would like to remind you all, stay smart, stay bold, but most important of all, stay cheeky. Take care guys.